uneven face. The 2 circles of sweat underneath each arm showed he'd been standing in the hot sun for a while. He raised a bottle toward me and then slowly lowered his arm when he saw my face. Then the honking cars behind us woke Stacy up, and she sped off. This was it. There had been horrible moments before this when I hardly recognized myself, and there would be more to come. But right then, in that car with Stacy, this was the most crushing departure from who I was and who I wanted to be. Worst of all, my unborn baby was along for the ride. This was unquestionably rock bottom. But even in that moment, I looked at Stacy and thought I was at least better off than she was. I'd never even smoked weed or cigarettes or drank alcohol. I was still young, and even though I was going to be a mother, there was still a slim chance I might go to college and do something with my life. I was an honor roll student. I was smart. There was just this pregnancy. That was it. That's the one thing I had to overcome. Now I understand this was a naive, simplistic view of the world and the places that Stacy and I occupied in it. Even as an addict on the verge of being homeless, Stacy's prospects were far better than mine. As a white woman, her chances of accessing the supports needed to survive her addiction, go to college, and work in a well-paid, fulfilling career were pretty high. If she didn't want to go to college, she could always work for her father and maybe one day inherit his successful car dealership. If she decided to have children, she would be 3 to 4 times less likely than me to die in childbirth. No one would ever know by looking at her or reviewing her resume that she had once been addicted to crack. In fact, she would generally be able to move through the world with people assuming the best about her. Things would be different for me as a pregnant Black teenager, even with a white mother. Regardless of how smart I was or how hard I worked, supports that could really make a difference for me and my child would be guarded by unnecessary barriers, and a college degree would be an evasive, ever-moving target meant for someone else. The idea of not going to college and still being able to provide for my family wasn't a viable one. Yet, even a degree would not erase the glaring wealth gap handed down from generation to generation in my family. In the hospital, when it was time for me to give birth, nurses would assume I had a history of drugs because of my age and the color of my skin. When my daughter arrived, there would be no hiding the fact that I was a teen mother. Her existence would be an invitation for people's judgment, scrutiny, and disdain, even after I earned 2 degrees, and no matter how bright and full of light my child would be. Unlike Stacy, I would move through the world with people assuming the worst about me, constantly wanting me to prove my worthiness. Was I worthy of resources? Was I worthy of opportunities? Was I worthy of an education? I would see this play out for me and the countless young mothers and fathers I would work with in the years to come. I would learn that we have much to overcome. When I was little, maybe 8 years old, I would lie down in the back seat of my parents' red 1979 Chevy Monza and look up through the window. Underneath me and draped across the seats were bright-colored striped towels that were first used to protect our legs from the hot black leather that would sear our skin in the summer, but were now there to preserve the cracking old leather beneath. This was the plan until they could afford a new car. I could hear the 2 of them immersed in some philosophical conversation about my mother's artwork or a new jazz musician as they drove along, fleshing out metaphors for the human struggle, debating the deeper meaning in a painting or a song. Their words usually danced through the air to the crescendo and downswing of a saxophone while my mind raced. I was a dreamer, always a dreamer. I'd picture myself as a grown-up, wearing a business suit and clutching a briefcase. I was thin, with long flowing hair, sophisticated. Or maybe I was on a stage in front of thousands of adoring fans, singing so passionately into a microphone you could see the raised veins on the side of my neck, just like Whitney Houston's. Other times, I was in another country. Africa, maybe, reading to little children in a village. My dreams were big. And other times...